My guest today on Great Dane Nation delivered, well, the greatest knock I've ever heard. Most times when it knocks on the door, you get nervous, but this one I had anticipated. I didn't know if it was coming. I hoped it wasn't room service, and I was sequestered with my lovely wife Jennifer in a hotel in Houston in 2017, and the knock came, and I'm telling you, it was not a feeble knock. It was a, here comes the special ops, and we're going to break this door down. On the other side was a big guy. His name was David Baker. He was president of Pro Football Hall of Fame, and he delivered some really good news to me. And David, welcome to the show. And do you remember the time? It was a pretty good time, man.
Yeah, Morten, I remember it vividly because, everybody talks about the knock on the door and how wonderful it is to see the emotions of the guys. But what's interesting is, people don't realize that we have to contact the guys who aren't selected before that. And we try to actually get them out of the way so that they're not hearing somebody celebrate in the room next to them. I mean, we don't want to, we hate disappointing guys. Because being a finalist means you're one of the 1,000 best players ever. But we certainly don't want to disrespect anybody. And I had the unfortunate pleasure of calling you 2 or 3 times, I think, and telling you that I hope I could knock on your door next year. So when this came, I was up for it. I'm excited. I knock on your door. It was just you and Jennifer. Yeah. And you came to the door. And it's one of my favorite knocks of all time because I don't know if you recall, but you put your head on my shoulder and we edit it when we show it to other people. But you were on my shoulder for like 2 minutes and you were crying.
Yeah.
And it quite honestly, Morten, it got a little uncomfortable at one point. Okay.
But I was happy you had that velvet jacket that absorbed my tears.
But I think it shows how incredible that journey is. And that's what we wanted for fans. We don't want them to, at that moment, people aren't thinking about their money, how much money they made or how much money they're going to make, or their rings. At that moment, they're thinking about their journey. And I guarantee you, knowing you so well, that as you're walking to the door after that knock, as your head is on my shoulder and you're crying, you're thinking about Struer. And you're thinking about your parents, and you're thinking about coming to America as, I think, a 10th grade exchange student. And it's all about the journey.
Yeah.
And it's about then taking your journey and making it a legacy.
Yeah.
And that is what the Hall has pledged to do, is to keep your legacy. Because, again, I will tell you, the affection and the respect that I have for you personally. I think your journey is one of the most remarkable in all of football.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And we shared another powerful moment in my hometown, a little village in western Jutland, and you and Colleen were kind enough to make that journey. And the Hall was kind enough, respectful enough to fly over the bust. We had the ring, we had the jacket, we had the 3 symbols of inclusion into the Hall there. I think maybe the first time that the bus has been outside the United States. I'm not sure. Maybe you can speak to that. But
yeah, I think it was.
Talk about your experience in Denmark. I know it was brief. It was a quick trip, but we certainly were glad and happy to have you.
I think within a couple hours of that knock on the door, you then go out. Once we knock on the door, we bring you guys together in a room and everybody's hugging the other members of their class. Yeah. And we stick you on a bus. We take you over to the honor show.
NFL honors, yeah.
And you walk out on stage at the high point of the midpoint of the show. And then all of our guys come up and who are in the audience, welcome you into this incredibly elite fraternity. And I think it was sometime on the bus or at the press conference, within hours of knocking on your door, you asked if we could somehow represent your gold jacket and ring and bring the bronze bust to Denmark.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything, so I said, "Yeah, let's do that. That's great, Morten." Little did I know that the time you were going to do that was Monday before the Super Bowl. So because we had the Pro Bowl, unfortunately, my wife Colleen and I, we traveled over there. I think we were only there 28 hours, and then we had to leave. But it was a remarkable experience. And I just don't say that because I'm on your podcast here. You know, they named a street after you, Morten Andersen Way, I believe.
Passage.
Morten Andersen Passage. Good, good name for a fjord up there. And all the kids had that day off from school, and they were surrounded around when we were there for you to get your street named. In Denmark, as I understand, they only do that after you're dead. So it was pretty special for you. I also had, and again, I'll tell you, I think there's 3,000 people in Struer, or 3,000 adults, and every adult in town was at this event that night. And I honestly believe every camera in Denmark was there. On that day in particular, the most celebrated athlete in the history of Denmark was an American place kicker.
It was pretty cool.
It was very cool, and there were so many things I remember. I remember you were kind enough we saw your house that you grew up in your bedroom, and I'm 6'9". I don't think I could have slept in your bedroom.
No.
It wasn't very big.
I had a little single bed.
But I'm telling you, if you walked from the bedroom out the living room door, kind of your front door faced this fjord, and it was incredibly beautiful. I mean, it was breathtakingly beautiful. And any American, you tell your folks they should put that on a Airbnb, because it was incredible. And but it was just a special time. And the other things I enjoyed, I've heard you tell your story a number of times, so I know when you beat out 3 other young kickers.
Flat belly.
You say flat belly. And I learned that the word flat belly is the same in Danish as in English, because that's when it came out. But a lot of the times I didn't understand what was going on, because people are speaking in Danish and they speak English predominantly there very, very well. But what was really cool, Morten, was the values that we talked about for you and for the other Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
Were the same there as they are here in the United States. The determination, the courage, the perseverance, the integrity, all these things were the same there as they are here. And it was a wonderful experience for me. I wish I could have stayed longer.
Well, you can always come back, buddy. Always come back.
Well, but I'll tell you, and it also, if I could, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I was so impressed by it. It taught me more about your journey.
Yeah.
And I have written, I think I've written the folks at NFL Films and the NFL Network, and told them that they ought to do a football life on you and Jan Stenerud. Because if Jan Stenerud doesn't get a ski jumping scholarship to Montana, from
Montana
Norway,
State, yeah.
There might not be a Morten Andersen.
That's
but
true.
Again, when I think about you, there's 2 moments that I think, to me, celebrate not just the football player you are, but the man of courage that you are. One is, coming from Denmark to the United States and for a 10-month high school exchange. I don't know what that's like. It can't be easy. I only speak one language. You speak, I think, more than 2, several.
4.
And as a young guy, how do you take that, and how do you mold that, and how do you persevere, and who are the people that help you along the way? And then, of course, the other one is the one I've told many times, and I always get the dates wrong. But when you were, it doesn't matter, because it is the import of the story. If I could say to your listeners, one of the coolest moments in being with the Hall of Fame is not just knocking on the door or presenting the bust or unveiling the bust or presenting the gold jackets. One of the coolest moments is um, on Measurement Monday when we have you get measured for the bust and the gold jacket, and I give you at least I used to give an orientation for what's going to happen in the year ahead. And then at the end of that time, we kind of pause and I turn it over to each of the enshrinees and I say, tell us something about yourself that, we wouldn't know from your resume or your statistics or something like that. And I remember you telling the story about how when you left New Orleans, I think you were cut, as sometimes happens to kickers.
Yeah, you get fired or hired.
And you were a certain number of points away from the record.
Yeah, it was in 2005, actually. I just left the Vikings and I was unemployed in a public park for 20 months.
Yeah.
And I was 77 points away from becoming the all-time leading scorer in the history of the game. I think I told it in my Hall of Fame speech.
Yes, you did. And that's what I think is so important, Morten, because you told Jen that you were going to stay in shape and you were going to hook on with somebody and you were going to get that record.
Yeah.
And yet it took 22 months of being in a public park. And at one point you said there were Pop Warner games going on and you're trying to kick between the games and you've got your, you've got your helmet on and your shoulder pads and your cleats because you're trying to make it like game-like circumstances. And people are whispering, who is that old guy dreaming about playing in the NFL?
Yeah.
And then you went out and the Falcons called and you beat out those other three flat-bellied guys.
Yes. And then was able to get it.
And you obliterated it, buddy.
Yeah.
And to me, that is such an inspiring story. It was more than just technical ability. It was more than just training. That is a man of courage, of perseverance, of believing in himself when others might not.
Yeah.
And what's great about that, to me, Morten, is that there are people at home who are sitting on the couch waiting for their shot. Yeah. And as you pursued this and refuse to let adversity beat you, it's a great encouragement to all those people.
It also gave guys that were almost 50 years old hope that if he could do it, maybe I could do it.
And I think you're the guy that started Tom Brady thinking, hey, maybe at 50 I could still be a quarterback.
Well, you had a heck of a run with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. What you were able to do in your tenure there, David, is phenomenal. Not only from a standpoint of PR, but revenue increased 161%, maybe even that's the number I've seen. But regardless, popularity of the place, the visibility of the place just skyrocketed. So my obvious question to you is, why do you decide now to change and step back? I've heard the official reason. Is that really you want to spend more time? Are you tired? Are you tired, buddy?
Well, I think I am tired, but I'm not tired of the purpose, and I'm not tired of the special, kind of mission we had at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. To me, you've heard me say many times when we were together, that I'd call it the Church of Football. That it doesn't matter what denomination you are, or whether you're an agnostic or Baptist, Buddhist, or Jew. These values. We as fans think guys like yourself fell out of bed great. And frankly, I've had enough conversations with you and enough conversations with Jan Stenerud, or even Ray Guy, to know that what you had to go through physically, what you had to go through emotionally, what you had to go through mentally, those are the values that made you great. It's not just because you're bigger, stronger, faster. It is because you are more determined, and everybody thinks about quitting or giving up. A guy like yourself finds a way to get through that and get around that, get over that. And to me, that's what makes you just a superlative Hall of Famer. Why guys like you and Jan and Ray are, yes, you're the special teams guys, but you were so great that you broke that barrier. But I love those values. I love talking about it. I think that it has great meaning not only to the NFL and to the game that we all love, but I think most often when I talk to soldiers like you have, or police officers, or fire safety guys, they are guys who played high school football. And they learned those same values. They may not have gone as far, but they learned those same values. So when they're fighting a fire or in a tough situation, they, just like you, don't give up. And so I thought it was just a wonderful experience. But for me, it's certainly an all-consuming experience.
Yeah.
I remember Jerry Jones telling me when he was trying to get me to do there that I could do this from California. And I think it's one of those things where for me, it was an 18-hour day every day, 365 days a year. Yeah. And I would say that there are a few other things that I want to do and, that I hope will help the game and the guys who built it, this great game. But I also want to see some grandkids. I've got 10 grandkids some of whom you know very well. And I was Colleen would go back and forth. And when she would, that would be difficult because I'd miss her. And I'd also be jealous that she was with some great kids. So if I'm based in California, I can do some of that. And I also think that, right now this has as wonderful a place as Canton was, and as great a place it will be to have your Morten Andersen's legacy forever there. There are a few things California has that Canton doesn't have. It has abundant sunshine, and there's another winter coming in Canton. It has authentic Mexican food, and it has those great kids. So, it seemed like the right time. There's never a right time to leave something that you love so much, and I have loved this. I fell in love with all the guys who are the Hall of Famers. Yeah. For a different reason, not in the hero worship of a football hero, but kind of as friends and as men that I respected, and like I said, their character and their courage and their perseverance. So, I think it's I think there's good people there that are going to carry it on. But for me, I'm not dead. I'm going to do some other stuff. But I'm hopefully going to do it in a way that allows me to spend more time with family and every once in a while work out.
Can you share what you are working on, what you want to do, or is it you want to stay?
I think it's still a little early, Morten. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of I still have a heart for not just the Pro Football Hall of Famers, but frankly for a lot of the guys that built the game. Especially late in life. I mean, some of my great experiences. We took, as you know, two groups of Hall of Famers, 20 guys each, I think, to Israel twice. Yeah. I wasn't on it because the trip to Israel was at the same time, but we had a private audience with the Pope. And I'll tell you, some of the great conversations I've had were with some of these guys late in life. Mm-hmm. I gave a ring, as we do in their stadium in front of their fans, the Hall of Fame Ring of Excellence designed by K Jewelers. I gave a ring to Y.A. Tittle. I spoke at Bart Starr's funeral and Chuck Bednar's funeral, Concrete Charlie. Had the opportunity to go to Denmark with you. And I think I've come to know these guys as guys who gave a lot to the game. And some of my great conversations, I had a conversation with Jim Brown on a bus in Israel that I would have crawled to the other side of the earth to have. And so some of my favorite guys are the guys later in life. So I'd love to find a way to help them. Yeah. I certainly want to help the game. Mm-hmm. But again, I've also got I've got a couple of young kids grandkids who themselves might be football players someday.
Yeah. What did you and Jim Brown talk about?
You know what? I'll tell you, we were in the back of a bus, and you've been on a million road trips. And when teams travel, sometimes I don't think your fans may understand, but you're traveling to get someplace, So there's long hours of boredom punctuated by some really spectacular destinations. So he and I are just in the back of the bus, and he was talking to me about his work that he's done in bringing gangs together with police. And it ended up being kind of prescient because, with the George Floyd, crisis and everything that came out of that, his whole deal was, he said, I understand what these gold jackets can do now, because he says, if we could just help African Americans in the inner city trust the police, and the police earn the trust of those people, we could save thousands and thousands of lives. And stuff like that just, jacks me up. That's bigger than football. Football's fun, and we all love it. But it's using this platform of football. When you can use a platform of football to change a life, or to save a life, wow, that is an elite place. That, to me, Morten, is the true testament to what it is being a Hall of Famer. And respectfully, I'm not just kind of flattering you. You are that kind of guy. I have seen that. I've seen that in your stories. The other thing I would tell you, for your listeners, that I'm sure they know, but you have such a great sense of humor that literally disarms people and makes them feel comfortable. And that smile that you got right now is so great. And I just think, for a guy like yourself, it wasn't about, and I've said this to you, I've said it to others, it's not about the end of your career. It's about what you can do now with that gold jacket. And, what you're doing here right now is a pretty cool example of that.
This has been pretty fun to, I've talked to over 35 gold jackets already. This is number 65 or 66 here we're doing. I mean, it's been going on for a little bit, and it's just been an amazing, journey. When you look back at your 8.5 years at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, what are you most proud of? Is there a moment you said, yeah, that one made sense, that one resonated, and that one made a difference?
Morten, you're going to make me cry here if I'm not careful here, okay? And I guess
I cried on your shoulder. You can cry on mine, okay?
I guess turnabout is fair play. But, listen, you've got a $200 million stadium there at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium. And you knew Tom Benson pretty well, okay? And I think what's happening there with the Village is pretty cool. I think the Black College Football Hall of Fame is to have that with the Pro Football Hall of Fame is pretty cool. But there have been so many moments, and one of the things I loved, when you're with the Hall, and certainly when you're president of the Hall, you kind of get this, feeling that you're the guardian of the game. Yeah. And I would love to tell people, guys who played, and some of whom only played for a year, to say thank you for all you've done for the game. Because, what the game has become is incredible, okay? Yeah. But in announcing that I was leaving, I got a flood of emails and text, and one from you, and all calls from all kinds of gold jackets, and they were telling me, thanking me for what I'd done for the game.
Oh yeah,
and that was really humbling. But in the midst of that, and I'm still going through text and emails and voicemails that I've got to return. But I would get I got one last week that was from a young guy who was the busboy at a restaurant, and his dad had died a couple weeks before. He was in 10th grade, and it was an opportunity. His mother was a waitress, so she got him a job, and she because she knew I was in football, she wanted him to meet me, and I tried to encourage him. It couldn't have been more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I told him the stories of men like you, and I told him that he can persevere and he can get through this, and that he can have the life, whether he's in sports business or whether he's on the field. He could be around this. And he was one of the guys, like many guys, who wrote me and said, "Hey, I know it was only 15 minutes, but you touched my life."
Yeah.
And I think the greatest satisfaction of any of this is not just the buildings or the ceremonies or even the memories, which were profound.
Yeah.
It's that maybe we touched a life.
Well, I'll tell you, now that I have you face to face, David, I think what you were really, really good at, besides being a very, very good speaker and holding an audience, was your ability to connect elements of life, lessons from life, to football, to the game of football, because at the end of the day, it's the common denominator here is our love for the game of football and what it teaches us, right? Yeah. And I think you did a really nice, fantastic job of connecting the dots so that the fan, and of course the Gold Jacket and the Hall of Famers as well, that it resonated with us, and it gave it a certain amount of credibility and leverage. It gave it girth, if you will. It gave it weight.
I think there's a certain gravitas and relevance, but that's why we kind of drafted the mission of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which you've heard me say a million times.
Oh, yeah, I think I can.
To honor the heroes of the game.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, it's not to me about the worship of football heroes. You and your fellow Gold Jackets to me are more than a football hero. There isn't a single one of you who didn't think about quitting a million times, just like the rest of us do. Brett Favre, great Hall of Famer, but he also happened to be the guy to throw the most interceptions in the history of the league.
Right.
But it's also to preserve its history. And you've been down there in the archives and seen the archivists to, there's 6 million pictures and 40 million documents to promote its values. And to me, that's the sweet spot in all this, is that you're not perfect. I'm not perfect. But there is I always felt that one of the things we could bring to this was a nobility, a courage, a bravery. And again, I'll tell you, everybody talks about kickers, and Bill Parcells can make all the jokes about kickers he wants. But I'll tell you, if you've got 37 seconds and you're on your 20-yard line, trying to get to the 40, man, you better have somebody who has guts, courage, steel in their veins.
Yeah.
And those are things that, respectfully, I've also seen you around your wife and your kids. Those are qualities that'll also make you a better father in life.
Yeah.
And respectfully, I know you've got the American flag behind you. I think it'll make us a better country in life. So, I feel very sincere about this stuff. But the last part of the mission statement is to celebrate excellence everywhere. And it's not just football. It's being an excellent father, being an excellent community. And again, it was a real privilege for me to be involved in. It's the kind of thing I could have done forever.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have done forever. I think there's so much more that the Hall and our Hall of Famers can do.
Oh, yeah.
But it's also time for me to do something, some other things that if I don't do them right now,
sure.
I may look back and have missed the boat.
I respect that tremendously, David. I do. What is the Hall? So help me understand where we go from here. What does he think? I mean, what do you think the Hall of Fame looks like in 10, 15 years? And what advice, have you given any advice to Jim Porter, who's stepping in and filling your shoes? This is not an easy spot. And I mean, I think the Hall's in good shape. It's a nonprofit. There's a for-profit. And so there's a lot of moving parts. What's your advice to Jim? Where are we in 10, 15 years? And how does this thing continue to evolve and grow?
Well, I think Jim is a highly qualified guy who, doesn't necessarily need my advice. And I think there's a board of directors there who shepherds the Hall. And certainly what they're doing with the village is very exciting. What they're doing with Hall of Fame Health, I think, is very exciting. And I think that there'll be lots more. But that really is not for me to say. That's for them to grab hold of and drive towards. And listen, I think it's been great, and I think there's so much upside for the Hall. And certainly in Canton, with all the stuff that's going on there. But I think throughout the country, with some great partners, we had partners like Centene that was working with underprivileged inner city kids on teen suicide and other things. I think we had partners like Ford that was working and honoring military heroes and other folks. So I think it was, when you're, I have said this to Commissioner Goodell, okay, who has been a longtime personal friend back since I was commissioner of the Arena Football League. But I told him that I felt bad for him because he's got to deal with unions and the press and everything else. And at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we get to deal with, I believe, everything that is good and great about the game. And I think as long as they and you continue to do that, I had a dream one time, and I believe it could still happen, that wherever there is trouble, whenever there's a hot spot in the United States, that we'd grab Eddie DeBartolo's or Jerry Jones's jet, and we'd have 4 or 5 or 6 guys in gold jackets there. When you have racial issues, like where was it, Charlotte, where there was a shooting in a church.
Yeah,
you guys have really done something special. When you were in that huddle, okay. I mean, goodness gracious, you were from Denmark, okay.
Yeah.
But there's also black guys and Hispanic guys, and they all came together.
Yeah.
They all subordinated themselves to something that they felt was bigger by themselves. And when you committed yourself to that, Morten,
yeah,
and you surrendered yourself and your ego to this team that was greater than you to make other guys better, a miracle happens in that instead of becoming less relevant, you actually become more relevant.
Yeah.
And there's a special bond in that locker room when you guys get there for the Reinitsky luncheon and it's just gold jackets in that room. It's a special bond. And I always hoped and still hope and pray for our country that our country can learn from you guys.
Yeah.
From Willie Lanier and from Jim Brown and from Bobby Bell and all these guys that were pioneers.
Oh, yeah.
For you guys, there are no black football players. There are no Danish football players. It is, you're a Saint or you're a Falcon or a Viking.
You're a Pro Football Hall of Famer, and the gold jacket and the inclusion in that company is the great equalizer. Yeah. And that's what I see, and that's what I feel at the Reinitsky luncheon. That's what I feel when I'm around my Hall of Fame brothers, and that's what I feel when I talk to them. Is that what we have in common is that everybody had some adversity.
Yeah.
It was in a different environment. Mine happened to be 20 months in a park. Another guy could be Michael Irvin, who grew up and he couldn't afford milk, so it was cereal with water. It could be, any number of Anthony Munoz, who never knew his father, or it could be what this platform.
Steve Largent, who had an alcoholic stepfather, or Sharp, who
on and on.
And again, that right there is no different than the rest of us out here.
That's it.
And what you guys have is a roadmap and a template for courage and perseverance. Yeah. And by the way, a very special word in our game that people don't talk about is hope.
Yeah.
When so many, the game has been so finely engineered that frequently it comes down to that last kick or that last play. And what that's about is hope.
I have a saying, trust your hopes, not your fears.
Yeah. Well, and let me tell you, that's what you had to do, when they show that shot of the kicker kicking into the net on the sideline. That's exactly what that guy's doing. And again, and I believe, Morten, that's what America needs. And I think you guys are not just football players. You are deeply committed human beings and Americans who understand that better than most.
I just went to New Orleans a couple of weeks ago, and I did a Heart of a Hall of Famer down there in the New Orleans public school system, and spent some time with some kids in New Orleans East, where that place was devastated by hurricanes, and was a unique situation where these kids, and I told them, the number one thing I told them was the greatest thing that I can do, that we can do, if you have a platform, is to give others an opportunity. So that they may have their Hall of Fame life, their Hall of Fame career, their All-American dream come through, because that's what happened to me. And I think it resonated with the kids. It really did.
If you ask me what I'm proud of the most, and it wasn't just me that did this, it was a lot of us that did this. It was an understanding that you don't have to be a football player to have a Hall of Fame life.
Yeah.
And that you can take these same values and apply it. And another one, by the way, these days is forgiveness.
Yeah.
I think with the internet and everything else, if you miss that last field goal, you've got to forgive yourself, and you got to get over it, because the next one is the important one.
Yeah.
And if you're a defensive back and you get burned, you better learn how to forgive. And Aeneas Williams told me, in all the work he's doing with Ferguson, Missouri, as a racially, kind
divided.
of torn and divided area. He said that a lot of people can't forgive themselves, so they can't move on.
Yeah.
And there's just so many wonderful lessons of this. And I think, again, there's still a lot of room for the biggest hit, the toughest play, the toughest player. But as I've learned out of this, boy, there's a wonderful application to the game in real life for the rest of us as well.
When you look back at your tenure, David, a couple more things, and then I'll let you go. Do you have a favorite speech?
A speech of Hall of Famer, or a speech of? Well, I think
something that said, man, that resonated with you, and that
I already referenced the part of your speech that I felt was so important. For other people to hear that, hey, 22 months, other people, I guarantee you, 22 months of kicking in some public park between Pop Warner games, I believe that 99 out of 100 other people would have given up, if not, 999 of 1,000. But I think that resonates well. I always loved Chris Carter talking about the fact that his brother Butch was going into the Hall of Fame with him, and his mom and his grandma were going into the Hall of Fame, because when you go into the Hall of Fame, it's not just about you, it's about all the people that were on your journey with you, all your teammates. And I thought that was great. Certainly LaDainian Tomlinson, as the great grandson of a slave going into the Hall of Fame, talking about we are Team America. But I will tell you, it's hard to pick, because
I know
you would sit in there and listen to all of them, but clearly the speech limits were a pretty good idea this last year, because we had so many of them. But everybody anticipated Peyton Manning's was going to be fantastic, and it was. It was funny. It was poignant. His last line, by the way, is something that I've thought of and texted him about not long ago. He said, what good is a legacy if there's not a future to build? But I think that, one of the guys I was real impressed with was Edgar and James.
Oh, he was great.
He talked about going from a gold tooth to a gold jacket.
Teeth to a gold jacket.
And as I've got to know Edgar, and he's one of those guys that maybe we prejudge a little bit, and man, there's a pretty smart dude in there.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what I've enjoyed, is getting to know the humanity of each one of these people.
So my favorite bust was actually Edrin James and Ed Reed. Those two busts, those two bronze busts were outstanding. Do you have a favorite bust?
Well, Ed Reed had that flowing hair and that whole
Yeah,
deal, and
yeah.
Edge did too. But Troy Polamalu for the same reason. I think one of my favorite stories is when we had Undercover Bust, and you came into the hall and put on a Hall of Fame shirt and a hat and some glasses, and fans were going into the gallery, and you're trying to tell them, "Hey, you should look at this guy over here." And I don't think any one of them,
No.
until you're standing right in front of him, knew that, hey, this is Morten Andersen, this is his bust, and that was hilarious.
I don't know if David, if you know the backstory on Undercover Bust. I was sitting there with your team of marketing people, and we were sitting at the hotel. I was up for that and something else, and they couldn't come up with a name. And so I had known a guy that was on Undercover Boss. Okay, Boss. So I said, how about, we've had a couple of libations and stuff, and I said, what about Undercover Bust? That one resonates with me. So I actually came up with that name, Dave.
I'll tell you, I thought it was brilliant, and it's funny.
And we've had a few of them.
When people find it's you, they almost fall to the ground.
And there a couple more guys doing it.
Yeah, it's been
after
great.
The fact, and it was a good laugh on that. So, what's your favorite reaction? You told my reaction when you knocked on the door. Was there another one where you knocked on the door and the guy surprised you and just like, wow, that one is cool?
Oh, well, Jerry Jones had all his kids and grandkids in there, and this is a guy with $8 billion, and this is a feeling that money can't buy. Every one of them was special. Kurt Warner was special to me because I kind of grew up with him in the Arena Football League, but every single one of them was special. I would say. Gosh, there's so many, but two stories that come to mind. When Randy Moss came to the door, he was this big glowing smile, this incredible presence, but he was a star. He is a star. But that star, sometimes it shines from you. And when I told him at that point, he was one of the best in the world and that we were going to guard his legacy forever, you could see the tears start flowing for him. And he kind of transformed right in front of me from this incredible, brilliant star to this guy who's now an ambassador for the game. And I think if you look at him on Monday nights, that's what you see now. The other one was Brett Favre. Brett Favre, or a guy like Peyton Manning, he knew I was going to knock on his door. When I got up that morning, I knew he was going to knock on his door. Brett Favre and Peyton took 10 seconds to be selected. We didn't even go through the process of talking about it because everybody knew they were going to be in. But when I went to his door and told him, I think at that point he was one of the 302 best players, coaches, and contributors in the history of the game, he put his hands in his pocket like a 10-year-old kid. And he hung his head and he said, thank you very much. And then we, again, took him over the honor show. The guys come up on stage and welcome them. As you recall, there's a press conference afterwards. And I run that press conference, or did. And so he's sitting next to me, and there's like 40 cameras or something like that out there. Lots of press. And as we're waiting, I turned to him and I said, how you doing? And because he had this deer in the headlight look a little bit, and you don't see that in Brett Favre much. And he said, man, I can't believe it. He says, I just shook the hand of Roger Staubach. And I would have thought, like you guys do, there's golf tournaments. I would have thought somewhere along the way I met him, and he said, no, you don't understand. All my life I dreamed of being Roger Staubach. And then he paused for a second. He goes, hey, I guess I'm on his team now, right? And I said, forever. And to me, you're on the same team as Otto Graham and George Halas. Okay.
Ghost.
Red Grange. And when I think it is more, sometimes I think that there's more emotion in when it's a guy like you who comes from Denmark, who comes as a 10th grade exchange student, who gets cut, but then comes back and gets a record, and then doesn't make it on the first ballot. I think sometimes there's a little bit of a greater appreciation, and I worry about those guys. But I think what we've learned is that for a Peyton Manning or a Brett Favre, when we're enshrining those guys, we're not enshrining the 45-year-old, refined marketing veteran that they have become to be.
Right.
We're enshrining that 10-year-old kid that started the journey. And I guarantee you, Brett was thinking about his dad. Or Jimmy Johnson, when I walked on the set at Fox, he was thinking about his mom.
Oh man, that was emotional. And Bill Cowher too.
Bill Cowher is, Bill. Bill is a very private guy, and he's got that granite jaw, and he doesn't want to show anything else. And we were able to get his wife and daughter over there just after he went on stage, and 5 minutes before I went on, and he just blubbered. He just blubbered.
Yeah.
But again, it is about a journey. And again, what I think is important to your listeners is that, yes, this is the National Football League. And yes, it is an incredibly elite level of excellence.
Yeah.
But every one of your listeners who are listening to this or watching it, every one of them have a journey. Yeah. Every one of them have people like that in their lives. Every one of them have a legacy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rich, and it's very empowering to be part of that team and this team. And it's been tremendous to be, part of your journey and watch the way you've worked the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the way you've interacted with everybody indiscriminately, I may say. And it's been wonderful. I wish you much success, David.
Thank you.
I think in the next chapter, you're going to be just as passionate with just as much energy. And it's going to be fun to watch. If I can help you in any way, let me know.
Morten, I love you. I love your family. Here's what you can do. You come to my house, as I did to yours in Struer, Denmark, and I'll introduce to you this concept that is very big in the Baker family. It's called Mexican food.
I can't wait.
Come on out. And
it's the spicier the better, brother.
I'd love to hug you again, brother. Okay?
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for all the good you're doing. And let me just tell your listeners and your viewers, you are a great Hall of Famer, and you've got so much great good ahead of you.
I appreciate it, David.
Thank you, brother. Take care, Morten.